I think we can go receivers. I think, we can end on quarterbacks as it's pretty straightforward.
Biggest battle. I leave it to the end.
Yeah. So receivers, from every report that we've heard, have been dominant so far in practice, and not only with their one-on-ones, but their blocking, their route running ability when it comes to full-on 11-on-11. They're tough. I mean, obviously, Neighbors and Lacey started some shit, and they're very confident right now. But that also makes me feel like, okay, Jaden Daniels is getting the football to these guys. Like, we are making plays on our defense, and we're pushing the ball right now, and we're spreading it out. According to reports, Brian Thomas was sidelined for a couple days with some hamstring soreness, so it gave the opportunity for Chris Hilton to take some first-team reps. Apparently, he is stacked right now at 6 foot 180 is what it says. He came into LSU, I believe, a beanpole, probably in the 160 range, if I had to guess. Just a true track running athlete, but has bulked up and he looks great. But by all means,
he's one of those dudes that if you tell me he's on the field a ton and catches a ton of balls, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. And then also if you told me he's like, yeah, he's got talent, but he just can't really find his way onto the field except for garbage time, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, very deep. Actually. Very deep at the receiver position. Brian Thomas.
He's 190.
190, yes, 6 foot 190. I mean, yeah, he's definitely bulked up, and he can fly, right? He's like a big, God, I was just about to say his name and I forgot it. The kid that transferred to Nebraska, the Palmer. He's like
Gilbert.
Yeah, Gilbert is in Nebraska. That is true. But Trey Palmer, a guy that was just track speed, that had kind of shaky hands. That's what I see with like Chris Hilton, but apparently he's turned the corner with size, and he's probably got better hands than Palmer.
Hadn't Hilton like dropped a few passes when he has had opportunities last? Like, I feel like I remember him doing. I mean,
but he had a great spring. He had a really good spring where he caught a lot of good balls, and we'll see. But with that being said, Brian Thomas has that position locked down. Like Ryan Thomas, as long as he's healthy, is going to be a freak there. Someone that we've seen starting since he was a freshman, and in a blink of an eye, he's a junior. 6'4", 205 out of Walker. Coming up in high school, he was regarded as one of the best players in the nation as a sophomore. Had some shaky Walker teams, and he flirted with Bama a little bit. It was down to Bama and LSU, and the kid comes in as a freshman, makes some plays. Obviously, last year as a sophomore, he did the exact same thing as his freshman year. I think you could see him breaking out. And if we're going to ask the question of who do you think has the most touchdowns, I think Brian Thomas is somebody that's in that category and would be a sneaky pick for the most touchdowns. I think he's going to be an end zone weapon. If you see him take a step from sophomore to junior year and progress, I think it's his reliability in the red zone, and he's going to be one of those threats that can get the deep ball, but can also work the back pylon and really maul some dudes.
Yeah, I mean, he feels like a guy that's going to be more of a household name in the SEC, like for sure.
Yeah.
I could see him, taking one of those second, third team, all SEC wide receivers, like having that good of a year, especially when teams have to be looking to stop Malik Neighbors. And, X and Y are locked up. Like, you got Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and then it's kind of a coin flip. I feel like, especially week one, seniority, Kyron Lacey's been getting a lot of those, but you mentioned him a few minutes ago. It's like, if you asked me, if you made me put money on it, I would say Aaron Anderson is that dude.
Well, yeah. And so like you mentioned, you've got a guy similar to Aaron Anderson that's locked it down, and that's Malik Neighbors. And Brian Kelly made it very clear, in some of his press conferences, they were asked, are you going to do things differently with him? Are you going to feature him like y'all did in the bowl game? And his answer was very clear. When you're in the bowl game, you have less pressure, especially when you're playing in, he even made a joke about it, the freaking Cheez-It Bowl, whatever we played in. And you can do whatever you want and kind of throw everything out there. We're not going to do that as far as having him throw the football. But he did say you're going to see an evolution in his game, and he's going to be a featured player for LSU. So Malik Neighbors is, by all means, the securest spot on the wide receiver crew, followed by Brian Thomas, who is a freak of nature and is in a class of his own when it comes to that position ability. But a featured playmaker you have in Malik Neighbors. So then,
well, and Neighbors has also been your number one for 2 years. We just had to act like Booty was like the first round draft pick still.
Right, and because and that's a great point. Booty was the last of that 3-year span or whatever it may be. That span of following the national championship with Ed, where it was all about, oh God, what 5-star do we have? And we can just hang our hat on this kid.
Yep.
Right. And then like Brian Kelly has slowly tried to change that, where like, it's not about one freaking player, guys. Like, it doesn't matter. If he's not bought in, we're not going to win football games. And we saw that happen. We saw that we didn't give in to that. We didn't allow that type of attitude. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to put out there that Booty individually had a negative attitude. I'm talking about the attitude of, well, I was a 5-star, and guess what? I could have transferred to Bama, but I decided to stay. It's like,
everyone bow down. Yeah, you should be thanking me for staying type
right.
of thing. Which,
like,
not saying he did, but yeah.
But it's bigger than that, right? Like, it's big. It's bigger than just the Booties and the Eli Rickses and like whoever else that we got in that time period that was like the signee of that class. And so we were looking forward to the year where they carry us across the finish line. It's a team effort now. Like, it's not just Harold Perkins. It's not just Mason Smith. It's not just Jaden Daniels. It's not just Aaron Anderson or Malik Neighbors. Like, you've got guys everywhere that work as a unit right now. And that's a culture change. And I feel like the wide receiver room doesn't need to just have one guy. And we're able to see that with Brian Thomas, with Malik Neighbors stepping up last year, bailing Jaden Daniels out of a funk, right? Like, hey, after an awful start to the season for Malik Neighbors, fumbling the football on punt return multiple times, dropping passes, and then eventually it's like, no, we believe in this kid, and he's gonna come through, and he did. I mean, I forgot what game it was. It may have been the Florida game, or one of the games. It might have been Bama. Like, the game's on the line, and we're going for it on 4th down or 3rd and long, and there's Malik Neighbors making a beautiful catch, contested catches for a little guy, sure-handed, against Purdue, putting him in the backfield, running reverses and taking it for 50 yards, wiggling through the entire defense. Like, this is going to be a featured receiver for our offense. Now, you add in Aaron Anderson, who is the same type of player, but maybe even shiftier, right? Like, a guy that's stockier, shiftier, that has great hands, that will be your punt returner, that has experience in it. Like, literally was a 5-star because of how productive he was as a return man, and a jack of all trades.
I know he obviously went to Bama, but God, does he look like with Bama, the wide receivers that Bama has been snatching up for the last 5 years? Like, the dude just looks like a Jalen Waddle out there. Like, hey, I'm just gonna make this nickel corner absolutely look stupid, and I'm gone.
Yeah, and they say that he is one of the hardest workers on the team, and that was the most refreshing thing to hear, was that Brian Kelly said, and we'll get into Denver Harris next week, but like, all of these big name transfers that came in this offseason, and then the freshmen that come in, Brian Kelly makes it no secret. There's no bones about it. Like, you're gonna have to prove yourself to play for me. Like, there is no, I am a 5-star talent and I killed it at Carr, or, I was a, freshman midseason All-American at A&M. Like, none of that matters if you set foot in this program anymore until you prove it, not only in practice on the field, but in the weight room with Flint, in the classroom with making sure you go to class on time. Like, there's so much accountability built in to performing for Brian Kelly, that the fact that he stated that about Aaron Anderson, that's like, hey, yeah, I started watching him first couple practices, and I'm very excited for what I see. But what I loved the most was that how Jake Flint stated, his work ethic is phenomenal. and that he doesn't skip a beat, doesn't skip a rep. He wants it. He wants to earn it. And so you're going to see him be rewarded for that. And Aaron Anderson is going to take a starting position on this offense. And it's not going to be taking away Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors. So
and he's not a one and done guy.
Right. You got him coming back. Like that's a guy you want to build on. You don't want to just bench this kid and not play him, and then he comes fresh next season. Like you want him to be a returning featured player just like Neighbors is this year.
Yeah.
So
I mean he just immediately, I'm sure he's gonna I'm trying to like temper expectations because I think this dude's gonna be awesome for what we do. But yeah, I mean, it feels like he's just going to walk right into that Malik Neighbors role like next year. And it's like, yep, we got our featured one again. Like, let's put Shelton Sampson next to him.
Yeah, and Sampson's a freak, right? And we're about to get into him when we go down the list. But Kyren Lacy is a guy that's a solid leader. He's that typical receiver that we have on the roster every year where you're just like, yeah, but the backup's better, right? It's like he's
I would love for him to be the guy. Would love for it.
He's like the Jerome Jenkins. Yeah, it's like, but then at the end of the day, like those guys bail you out of big games.
Yeah.
Is Kyren Lacy going to be that type of player? Or do we not even need to now venture down that road anymore with this type of roster that we built, right? Where you don't have to, sacrifice a year of development and play a guy like Jenkins instead of Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas or whoever it might be. And I'm not dogging on Jere Jenkins. He played a beautiful role and he won several football games for us, right? But at the end of the day, Kyren Lacy had a lot of drops last year that were in pivotal moments. I mean, you go back and look at the A&M game, he's hungry and he goes in for games prior to that, and you're like, maybe we have something here, and then you give him an opportunity, and he drops a couple easy first downs that really could have changed the game. If his hands can shore up, obviously we saw it in the spring game, but so did, the spring game is something that we've seen stars break through in the spring game, and you never hear of them again. It could have been the Richard Murphy treatment for all we know, but his hands did look pretty damn good with some one-handed snags, and he's pretty fast. It's just tough to think. He's a pretty big kid.
He's actually the biggest receiver we have weight-wise.
He's a good blocker, right? Like he's somebody that I feel like is tough. Like and he was in the fight. He was in the scrum with Denver Harris and Malik Neighbors. So
he's
like
perfect locker room guy. Like he's a leader in that wide receivers room. He's not gonna, he's gonna tell it like it is type of thing. I love having him.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is, how good is he to keep, Aaron Anderson's sideline? How good is he to keep a freshman stud like Shelton Sampson from earning his stripes and developing? So we'll see.
He's also that dude who could end up being like everyone's favorite player because he's a special teams just a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
He's also from the University of Louisiana Lafayette too. I mean,
yeah, he's a transfer from UL.
UL Louisiana Lafayette.
But listen, he's another one of those guys that came in and bailed us out last season, right? Like we had a lot of dudes that we didn't expect to come in last year that like helped us. But
look at it,
we've turned the corner, and as a program where I feel like some of those guys may not be like. Do we really feel that Greg Clayton is going to be our punt returner all season? No, but he bailed us out. Like he was a godsend last year, right? It was necessary. I don't know if Kyren Lacy, if it's fair to like group him in that type of category because he probably is better than that.
Yeah.
But he just off on paper, off the cuff, like he's that first guy that you look at. It's just like, man, this is stacked across the board. But Kyren Lacy's still in the lineup.
Yeah, how is he going to hold on for dear life for this position for sure?
I think it's going to be game plan. Like Aaron Anderson is going to be game plan. There's going to be specific plays more than that. Like he's not going to have 1,000-yard season, but all-purpose yards he's going to do some damage.
There'll be packages for Anderson. Obviously, he's going to be the punt returner from everything that we've heard so far.
And how much of the offense are these guys going to be able to pick up too?
Exactly, and that's the thing is who's going to know the offense the best? Obviously, Lacy knows it the best right now out of that number 3 wide receiver position that we're going to have on the field. But with that being said, like I said with running backs, if you've got a guy that you can't keep off the field, like if every time we get a punt return and Aaron Anderson is just like a step away from taking it to the house, and then you hit him on a slant and he's doing the same thing, like by week 3 or 4, we're going to be game planning for whoever and be like, you know what, guys, like it's time to put Aaron in the 11, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, man, if you made me tell you today, I would say I think Kyron Lacy's role on this team is identical to what it was last year.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm wrong, I'd love for him to be a stud.
If you look at him statistically, he has been Mr. Consistent. He's had 300 yards receiving in each year of college.
So after that, according to the reports, they've kept it based on seniority pretty much when it comes to the rotation behind them. Landon Ibieta, the Mandeville White Knight, has been getting some touches there and looking fine. Like I said, Chris Hilton's been running with the ones because of Brian Thomas having a little bit of a hamstring soreness. Shelton Sampson, the true freshman coming in. There's a slew of true freshmen.
Let's talk about the 3 freshmen. Let's go.
There's a handful of true freshmen who, in my opinion, out of all of them, according to practice reports, the most physically ready right now is Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker is back there with Aaron Anderson returning punts. So like very similar stature, very similar skill set, a very, very strong SEC physically ready guy, but short, right? Like he's stocky, but he's got hands like glue. He's running sick routes. Very much Malik Neighbors, Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker, like they're their own little kind of type of engine that could, I guess you could say. But then you've got guys like Shelton Sampson, 6'4", 190,
Ruben Randall type.
Ruben Randall, Brandon LaFell, like that, like stars in the making at that Y position that's going to be really solid, that you're going to see get some catches. But next season, their sophomore year, redshirt freshman year, alongside Aaron Anderson and Kyle Parker, like that's
Jared Nussmeier.
That's going to be fun to watch, and you're gonna have to develop those kids. And then you've got the speedster Jalen Brown, who obviously they put out some videos of his catches where they were stating you thought this was just a track kid, and he's tie roping the sideline making some over the head catches. And then Kai Prien, who is another one of those bootlegger boys, 7-on-7 demon, somebody that's coming in out of St. James, and I know I've said this a million times over the years on the podcast. If you have a kid from the river, if you have a St. James kid, if you have an East St. John kid, if you have a Lutcher kid, like West St. John, it does not matter
North St. John
what their record is or what their status is on the On3 rankings. That kid is going to make plays for you at some point in his career, and you're going to be like, damn, Kai Prien's a dude. It's going to happen. Now, is it going to happen this year?
Just give him one of the scholarships, and eventually it's going to work out. It
will work out. So obviously we missed on I think it was either his teammate or maybe he was at East St. John, was Shaz Preston the year before, who was the top receiver in the state with Kendrick Law, with Aaron Anderson, that all went to Bama. So reports at a Bama camp are not too pretty, by the way.
Not anymore. I'm not going to Bama anymore.
I've been sneaking over to their side of the talk, and they're not happy in Tuscaloosa right now with practice. Kind of funny to watch that blow up. And the reason I say that was some of the reports was that Shaz Preston fumbled twice, on a couple of his catches, and so they took him out. They're not able to complete passes. They're throwing ducks. They're hitting the ground. It's not fun, but it's funny to see, like, the only guy so far from that wide receiver crew that bailed on Louisiana is Kendrick Law, who was a North Louisiana kid that was an athlete that was not really slated to be the dude. Good for him, whatever. But we got a guy in Aaron Anderson, and we've got some serious depth, and we're building, and we're only getting started here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is just an embarrassing collection of talent. Like 3, 4, 5 of these dudes are going to be good enough. It's like, we'll figure it out.
So yeah, I think those are your top 4 guys, right?
The only name left off this list that I couldn't fit it. It was Javon Nicholas from St. Augustine.
Oh, well, we have to talk about Javon Nicholas.
And bring him up. What's his 247 profile?
No, that's the one. We got him as a preferred walk-on last year, and he ended up playing as a freshman last year in certain situations.
Yeah, very similar to Greg Clayton, right? Like a guy that...
Yeah, but he's a freshman. Clayton's on his way out. This guy's on his way in. But yes, the same
right,
role
like a guy that
could be a sure-handed guy or whatever.
Right. We have guys on this roster that want to be here, that have busted their ass, that have found a spot and are sure-handed and they make plays. Now, that helped us last year. Moving forward, it's like those guys are good locker room guys. Those guys are good depth guys, good sideline guys, good backup special teams guys. Like, hey, fuck, Aaron fumbled twice. Like,
Purdue.
Let's go ahead and throw Clayton back out there or Nichols back out there, because guess what? They can't do anything else, but they're going to fair catch and they're going to make the catch. And if we ever get to that point, we have those type of, I'll do whatever it takes to be on this team type of guys. And that's great to have. So yeah, the wide receiver room looks great and they're performing at a high level during practice right now. And the reason they're performing at a high level is not only their ability, but obviously the quarterbacks are putting the ball in a good position for this team and for the offense to work the defense so far. And obviously that's led by Jaden Daniels. So the quarterback